Could you introduce about yourself?
Sure. Hey, I'm Frank.
Yes.
I'm Canadian. I study at Concordia University, and in 2015, I did an exchange to Keio University. And I think that's what most of the questions are about.
Okay.
Okay.
Why did you choose to
why
come
did you
KEIO?
choose to come KEIO?
So I wanted to do an exchange to Japan, mostly because I found the country interesting. And the choices that I had, Keio seemed to be the most interesting because it was in Tokyo. There's a lot of reasons to want to stay in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I think the other options were in Kansai, and the universities themselves were more focused on language. So that was mainly why I decided to choose Keio.
I see. So, what's your impression about Keio University?
So I feel like my impressions are going to be very different from, like Japanese students, because like the foreign exchange program was very separate from like the normal classes.
I see.
The classes we were taking were a lot more easygoing. Everything was in English, but it felt more like the kind of environment that would promote like cultural exchange rather than strictly like learning university material.
I see.
My impression was good overall.
I see.
Okay, so.
Okay. So what is the best moment in Japan?
I mean, there's a lot of aspects to that. Like, I think for me personally, this is the first time I was living on my own, and just the freedom of being able to go like anywhere I want. Everything is super accessible by train.
So Keio is considered as a number 1 or 2 about private university. Do you feel any confident?
It's hard for me to say. Like, I go to a university that's not very high ranked, and there's some things that I really like about it, and there's other things that are not great. And yeah, like the language classes at Keio were very good, but also like there's a different teaching philosophy in Japan. I feel like it's expected that students know the material before, but usually like in a Western, you can go to class without knowing the material, and it's a good introduction, and then you can study afterwards. So I found the language classes very.
What's your bad impression?
So what's a bad impression?
Bad impression.
Yeah.
Okay. The student gym it was not nice. It was very small. The equipment was very old. I was surprised.
I see.
It's probably the worst gym I'd ever been to.
I think most of the foreign students always hanging around with other foreign students. It's my opinion, but they never blend into Japanese. Is it true, or I'm biased?
日本語はあまりできないから、it's hard to interact in Japanese with Japanese. I think it's only natural for people who speak the same language to kind of group together. And yeah, like there's some Japanese people who will approach like foreigners just because they want to interact in English, or they're generally interested on like talking to people from other parts of the world. But for the most part, it's very much separate, and like most of the students would just see us and think, oh, foreign student, and then they wouldn't like go up and talk.
The problem is our side.
Because like there's no right or wrong in culture, and I think that a lot of Western cultures, it's more accepted for people to just go up to each other and talk to people. But I realize, having traveled outside of Tokyo, that it's more of a Tokyo phenomenon where everybody is in their own bubble. They don't really talk to each other, and it's a little depressing, I feel.
I see. Okay. Do you feel any gaijin pass in Japan?
Sometimes. Like when I try to say something in Japanese and somebody tells me, "Oh, Nihongo jozu," it's like, no, my Nihongo is not jozu. They're just being polite. It depends. Like sometimes people are being polite and more welcoming because they know that I'm not from the country, and like I really appreciate that. Like I do think it sometimes plays to your advantage as a non-Japanese person, but there's also like a bunch of moments where you feel like just really out of place, like you don't understand, and you know, living in a foreign country can be difficult, and it's not something that you can really prepare for, and I think different people react differently. So
I saw many girls love to pick up by gaijins, despite they didn't speak any English. Were Japanese girls easy to pick up?
So I'm not the kind of person who tries to pick up girls.
I see.
And if a girl is interested in talking to me just for superficial reasons, like, oh, I'm from another country, I speak English, or, you know, or my appearance, like, that doesn't really make me want to talk to a person.
I see.
Like, I have a story. One day at Keio, I just sat there having a snack, and these two girls are talking next to me in Japanese, and one of them said, "Oh, I wonder if I have cute babies if I marry a foreigner." Like, I understood her. I didn't say anything, but it was just kind of a funny moment, I guess. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian and I'm from a big city, but we don't really have a strong concept of like foreigner. Like, I can walk down the street and see someone who's like, you know, any ethnicity whatsoever, and it's not until like maybe I start talking to the person, or I see that like maybe they look a little lost, like, oh, okay, maybe they're not from here. But there's no like immediate like, oh, they're a foreigner. You know, so it's a bit different.
I've asked you before, but do you have any memory about studying Keio? I want to ask a bad memory.
I had a grammar teacher that was very strict.
I see.
And like, sometimes she would ask me, like, you know, to answer questions in class, and she would just laugh in my face if I got stuff wrong. It was a little traumatizing.
Why is she so mean?
I don't know.
In conclusion, your study in Keio was good or bad?
It was good. It was good. Like, I think that the studying aspect was, you know, not the biggest part of the overall experience. Like, for me, it was just learning to live on my own and also in a foreign country. Like, you know, I was younger, and like, there's a lot of things that if I could go back, I would do different. But it was a great learning experience.
I think
I didn't think you were very open as a person.
Branding at the time.
I was a little closed off at the time.
I see.
Yeah, and you didn't hanging around
with
other foreign students.
What did you do
in your free time?
I kind of stayed in my room a lot. Just, I don't know, on the internet, wasting time. Like, I think my mental health was not as good as it is now, so that's also a factor.
Do you have any memory with me?
I remember more the time that I visited in 2019, because I didn't see you all that many times, like, in 2015. Like, I remember there was another guy from Sweden, and we hung around a couple times.
I see.
Yeah, I wasn't very sociable, unfortunately.
How about you
come to Comic-Cat?
Like, I've been to a similar event, and like, I understand like how it is. Like, I think I found design but it's just more like general art and not just doujin.
But I think you have many stuff about cosplay.
I used to. Like, I just don't have time these days. Like, I really enjoy making things. And,
I see.
Like, I have some projects in mind that, like, you know, they're really big projects. Like, I don't know if you know the game Metal Gear Rising. Like, it's not something that I would participate in, but just as someone who's walking around and just looking at all the different, like, very inspired to be there. Like, it was such, like, a friendly, like, creative vibe, and it was just so vibrant.
I see.
It was interesting. It kind of hit me different from, like, you know, the other conventions that I've been to.
I see. Have you joined any club in Keio?
No, I didn't.
I see. I think there is a English society, and also my club used to accepting foreign students.
I heard about it, but at the time I I was a bit socially withdrawn. I didn't really.
Do you have any word to KO students?
Do you have any words to...
Any words to KO students? I don't know. Say hi to the foreigners. I don't know, so one thing that I did find really interesting is that, like, getting to talk to a whole bunch of people from different countries.
I see.
Like, in hindsight, it's really rare that, like, you get that many different perspectives or different, like, cultures. Like, now that, like, I know some German people, like, let's say I'm going to Germany, like, for work, I can just be like, hey, do you have any recommendations, this and that? So, you know, just knowing people from different parts of the world, like, even if it's just an acquaintance, like, I think that, you know, sometimes that opens doors for you. So, yeah, like, if I could say something to, you know, KO students being, I don't know, Japanese or foreign, it's just, yeah, talk to people, and you never know.